You are now listening to Discovering God with Olivia Adebayo.
I'm following your lead.
Welcome to my podcast.
Ooh, I'm ready.
Today's guest is Miss Alyssa.
Hello.
Beautiful occupational therapist, right?
No.
Something therapist.
Behavioral.
Behavioral therapist. And amazing mom, friend. What else?
I don't know. You're gonna make me cry now.
I
It's
am?
only the beginning. No, I'm joking.
But before we start, I just want to thank you for coming. I know this is a little hike for you. It's honestly a hike for everyone. This is not like a,
You live out here.
versed area. It's very farmy. I'm sure you passed a couple animals.
I saw horses.
Yeah.
I saw
So it was a
horses.
treat. And so I'm glad you're here. And I just want to start by praying. If that's okay?
Yes.
Okay. God, thank you so much for today. God, thank you so much for bringing Alyssa and her beautiful family. And thank you for Mr. Brown. God, thank you so much for giving us this space and this platform to share testimony, to share what you've done in our lives, God. We thank you that we're here and that we've survived it, God. I pray right now, Holy Spirit, that you would dwell in this place. Just sit with us, God. Join us in this moment, Lord. And I pray that, Jesus, that your name is glorified in this house, through Alyssa's life, through my life, and through this podcast. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
You nervous?
My hands are a little warm.
Oh, good. Let me stop. Well, first, you just told me where you were from before we actually started recording, but dive a little bit more into that. Where are you from?
So I am from California, Santa Barbara to be exact. Santa Barbara, Carpinteria, they're kind of meshed together. I was raised in like this super small beach town. Like my high school was literally like 200 people in the whole school. So we had really nothing to do other than go to the beach, drink alcohol, get into trouble, house parties, all of that. So that's pretty much where that's how I grew up in that kind of thing. So high school was far from scholarly, if that's a word. It was lots and lots of just partying and socialite, and to be honest, I hardly made it even through. I struggled with severe anxiety to the point where I missed my freshman year. I was bullied severely my freshman year. So I had to leave that school out of my safety, and it kind of ignited this it took over my life pretty much, the anxiety. I could hardly leave my house, going on car rides, anything. It would just trigger, and there was no understanding of why it was triggering. It would just trigger. And I used to, in order to cope with it, I would pull my hair out or scratch myself until I bled. And it was kind of like the doctor said, it was a way, how a depressed or suicidal person would cut themselves. I would scratch myself or pull my hair because it would pull me out of the pain of the anxiety, and it would inflict pain on me. So come, I want to say at mid-sophomore year, it got to the point where I was literally calling my mom, locked in the bathroom, couldn't breathe, just you need to pick me up. And so it got to the point where she could not pick me up anymore. So we had to figure out what we were going to do. We tried homeschool, the home hospital or whatever, where you do school at home and you have that kind of thing. Didn't work. We tried everything. And then finally we were able to, we didn't want to go on medication. So we were trying everything but medication. Finally, we just were we have to do something. Got on medication. It was a super low dose of something. Didn't make me feel any kind of way because that was my biggest thing. I had anxiety about the anxiety medicine.
Right.
And yeah, I got on that and got my life back about junior year.
Okay.
And that's really where everything kind of just took off with Alyssa's life, in a dark way. Because now I'm like free from anxiety. But then I did cheer pretty much all 4 years, despite like dealing with anxiety stuff. Now I am hanging out with the cool crowd. And
You're at a different school now.
yes,
Okay.
I'm at the new school. I got to the new school the second semester of freshman year.
Gotcha.
So everything happened like the first few months of freshman year. There was, death threats, everything, just craziness. That's not where the anxiety stemmed from, but that's where like sparked it. So now I'm in a new school, and the first, like my sophomore year, end of freshman, sophomore year, it wasn't doing too much, but then when I got out of the anxiety, that's when the alcohol started coming in, and the partying, and all of that. And I wanted to fit in. And I wanted to be normal, and I didn't want to be the girl that scratched herself until she bled, and I just wanted to be normal. And so I started running around with them.
Well, let me slow you down for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Talking about like your family, you said your mom. Did you grow up with your dad also?
Yes,
Okay, so mom and dad, and do you have siblings?
I have a brother and a half brother.
Okay. And where are they from? Like, what's your ethnicity? Like your background?
Ethnicity. So we are Mexican.
Okay.
We do not speak Spanish.
Okay.
Everyone, I swear, they
That's
could
common.
just walk up to me and they're like speaking. I'm like, nope, I don't. Sorry. A lot of my family members do, but my family, we just don't. We were raised in that kind of culture. But we were not raised in Catholicism.
Okay.
Like, a lot of my family was outside of us, but my family, my parents and my brother and all of us, we were not. We honestly weren't raised in any kind of religion.
So was you like atheist or like agnostic?
No, I guess you would say agnostic, because honestly, we just didn't
Secular?
associate ourselves with anything. Like, I don't remember ever hearing the name of Jesus or anything like prayer life, nothing. My aunt was actually the first person that introduced me to a church. That was third elementary school, I want to say, because she started dating this guy who was a drummer at a church, and then ended up getting married to him. But when I remember her taking me to church because it would bother my mom and my parents because they weren't, and so, but I honestly could not tell you one memory about church. I don't remember anything about going into the church, about anything. I don't remember the Bible. I don't remember meeting Jesus. I know that she introduced me to a church, but it sure wasn't Jesus.
That's eye-opening for me, because a lot of times I feel like living in America, everybody knows who Jesus is, everybody knows who God is, and so I always assume, okay, they already know, so I need to maybe not say it, or try not to push it down, but so it's interesting to hear that you had not.
I literally I didn't even know what God was until my aunt brought me to that church, and it only lasted probably 2 years or so, probably maybe to middle school or something like that. And then after that, I knew that you prayed, and that there was a thing called a Bible. I don't think I ever owned one or read one, but I knew there was that. Still wasn't in my family, wasn't in my household. And yeah, I remember I could think back and remember praying to something that I didn't even understand.
During the anxiety, or just?
Yeah, it would be certain things like that, where I would just be I knew what prayer was, so I would I guess you would just
put it up there, but not really sure. Got you. Okay, so I'm gonna run that back to get an understanding of where you came from. So when you start talking about the darkness, in relation to that. So you're in high school.
In high school.
You're partying. You're the cool girl. You're a cheerleader.
Yeah.
You're drinking and stuff like that. Yeah. It's junior year.
This is about I would say end of sophomore, beginning of junior.
Okay.
Yeah. And so now I'm like, so I come from a family, a Hispanic family, where drinking is very normal. So like you started drinking when you were like a kid. There was a lot of drinking around. My family, every family party, alcohol, music, partying. So that's what I was around. It was normalized in my family. It was always in the house. I remember seeing my parents always drinking on just like normal weekdays. It was normal. So when I got into it, I had a very strict dad. So I myself kept myself sober until this time, because I was so scared of my dad. And I kept myself like very like away from a lot of things, because my brother and my older cousins, or even my cousins that were like close to my age, they were out exploring. I was always a scared kid. And yeah, finally I remember the party that I first started drinking. It was a house party, and I used to pretend to drink. So I used to have the cup, and I would like pretend I was sipping it, and I would go to the bathroom and I would like pour it in the sink, just to fit in. But at this party, I was like, you know what? I'm tired of pretending. Like I want to fit in officially. And so at that party, I started drinking, and that was like where all of this everything started. And it was just like every week I was sneaking out of the house. We were saying we were going to friends' houses, going to like a whole different city, driving drunk. Sorry, parents. Yeah, I remember driving. My brother would let me use his car, and I would be the one that would drive my friends to like, because we were in this little tiny town, so in order to go to a party, we would have to leave the town. And so, like, being in my brother's car, and I was the only one that felt confident. I was a designated drunk driver. So I would be driving drunk, just, like, being so reckless, you know, just we're invincible. And then I started, like, noticing that, like, men were interested in me and this and that. And at this point, I didn't know anything about my past. I was very like numb and out of tune, because I found out now that like I black out a lot of times in the situation. So I didn't know anything about my past at this time. And so at this point I'm learning like men think I'm attractive, and I that like fed into this thing that I didn't even know was in me. And so I still was holding myself pure, not like being sexual, but I was enjoying the attention of men. But then it would start as like simple like make out sessions, simple these things, simple this things. But I still would never take it any further.
Wait, when you say you didn't know about your past, you mean like you would black out and you didn't know what was happening?
No. So I would dissociate.
Okay.
So, I mean, I'm still learning. God's still revealing some things, but in 6th grade, I was.
I see. I got you.
So, I dissociated from it. So, it
like,
wasn't.
Kind of like post-traumatic stress, like amnesia?
Yeah,
okay,
pretty
gotcha,
much, yeah.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, would like dabble in like messing around with boys, but just never go that far.
Right.
And then I believe it was end of junior year, we went to this thing. It's called MORP. It's like a backwards prom. So it's like a kind of like a high school rager. You just like dress in neon, and it's like literally like not a rager. What's it called? A rave. It's like a rave. And we all went, and I went. All my friends had boyfriends. I went single. I was the only one in the group, because in this high school you had your group. So our girl group could only date this guy group. And so I was the only one that was single. And after the dance, they were like, we're all going to so-and-so's house. He was the house that normally had the house parties. Right. And I was like, okay, but everyone has a boyfriend and I'm single. And I knew that there was one other guy there that was also single. And I was like, no, I want to go home, because I knew what they were trying to do. And so I remember being like, no, I want to go home. Like, I don't want to go back with you guys. And they were my only ride. And they were like, no, that's too much to take you home and then go back to the house. Like, we're going to go there. And I remember just, like, asking them over and over, like, I just want to go home. Because I just, like, felt it in me what they were trying to do. And I couldn't, and so I was like, okay, well, if I go, then I'm just gonna go to bed. I'm gonna go in the room and go to bed. They're like, fine. And so we got there, they all went to the jacuzzi, and I was like, I'm going into the guy's house, the guy's room that lived there, and I'm gonna go to bed. I remember being in the bed, and this is where like that kind of like amnesia stuff happens. God still hasn't allowed me to like actually see everything, but that is the day that I was raped. And I know, it's like I know who it is, but I still can't see his face. And I don't remember anything about it.
But you, at that point though, were you drinking, or you were just, you were conscious and everything was
No, I was sober.
Okay,
Yeah,
gotcha.
I was not drinking that night. We were going there to drink, but because of, I just felt
you didn't want
it,
to,
yeah,
you know.
so I just went to bed. And so yeah, I don't remember. Like, I went to the journal, like, recently as I went through, like, that forward thing, and I tried, like, writing out what I do remember, and all I can remember was laying in bed, and then, like, the door opening, and just seeing, like, a black figure, like, a black, like, shadow figure, kind of, and that's all I can remember, and then just this terror over me, and, I still, like I said, I know the guy who did it, because I can remember everything before, but I just cannot remember what happened. And so for the longest time, I always said that I consented, because I was like, if I don't remember, I honestly don't. And I remember being at breakfast the next day, and all the girls would be like, oh, how do you feel? You lost your virginity. And like, they were all like excited, like they didn't just set me up for this. And I just remember just being cold, and just like having no feelings, and just being like, I don't want to talk about it. And they're like, you're not in love, you're not this, you're not that, because they all lost it to their boyfriends and stuff like that. And I just remember just being stone cold, not having any feelings, not even having emotions about it, not having anything, and just being like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, and that's all I can remember until God opens that for me. But it wasn't until I started working with Krista with Define My Purpose, that I like was actually able to say like that happened, and then that's what opened to 6th grade, a family friend that I was like in love with. We were on a camping trip, and he snuck into my tent, and that was the first time a boy has ever touched me. Touched me under my clothes, and pretty much like manipulated me into believing that it was okay. And I remember thinking like, this is not okay. But I was so in love with him that if I told him no, like I was scared that he wasn't gonna like me. And so that was my first experience with a boy in 6th grade. And so I didn't realize that I had all that in me. And so when everything happened in high school, that's pretty much, that threw me into, okay, we're drinking more. We're drinking, we're partying. Okay, now men, okay, I guess I had sex, so now I can just have sex.
Like you unlocked you to different things, gotcha.
So now.
I'm sorry that happened to you.
Yeah, it's I definitely wasn't able to talk about it before. But I can talk about it now. Now I see the beauty in it, and someone told me that God has trusted me with trauma, and that's where I see the beauty in it, because I am able to talk to people that a lot of people can't talk to. And it's brought me to my purpose. But yeah, it opened up, and so now I can have sex. Might as well have sex. And sex was completely numbing to me. It was like alcohol. Because I didn't even know, like, I honestly don't even know how it felt the first time. And so everything from that moment, it was just numb. And so I was laying around with everyone. My dad was pretty verbally abusive, and installed it in me that I was not really gonna be much. And now sex is just numbing. It's just an action. It's just something that I do because that's what men want. And so it all just started going into this snowball. And so now it was just like, if you will give me 2 seconds of your time. And so I just started sleeping with men. It was just, and it was just, I mean, hypersexuality was in my family too.
Right.
It was praised. Like, oh yeah, who'd you get with this weekend? Like, it was praised. It was how you coped. Like, have a bad day, go drink, and then go have sex. And so yeah, I just found myself laying with a bunch of men, and I wanted, like, deep down, like, I wanted love. Like, I would tell myself, like, I'm doing it for love. Like, I want love. And it, I mean, obviously, it never ended up like that because I never made a man work for me. It was just like, find me attractive, okay, let's go. And yeah, it just started going and going and going and going. And then I got out of high school, moved out of my parents' house as soon as I could. Because of the toxicity in there, and I didn't know anything. Like I said, hardly made it through high school. Didn't know anything about financial literacy or anything. Got a full-time job that, and then had to start paying my rent and start living. And so I think I lived in like 20 different people's rooms. Just renting rooms. If I couldn't afford it, move to the next one. And it was just like awful. Just literally remember I couldn't even like afford to like feed myself and just go.
Your mom wasn't like concerned?
They pretty much were like, we told you so. Now you can figure it out. And because they told me, like, if you leave, you're not coming back. And at that point, I just wanted to leave the toxicity. It's not so much I wanted to leave them. I couldn't be in that house anymore. Right. And because now, like, everything that my dad has said over me, now it's true. And my mom has a problem with alcohol because of her past. And so now it's just like, I need to get out of this house. Like, I know that I need my parents and I need their help and financially, but I need to get out of this house. I can't breathe in this house. And so I thought I had it all together and I could do it. And I was just working whatever I could work, and I was struggling. I was all over the place, and I could just see the disappointment in my parents' face and eyes and everything. And so I started partying hard. I started like getting into clubs at 18 because I was cute, because I could, because I would walk in with a guy. And then my friend, one of my friend and her friend, she got into Playboy. Started working with Playboy, which opened the door to like parties, like Hollywood parties, like celebrity parties. And
this is in Cali still.
This is still in Cali, yeah. And so she brought me into the circle because I fit into it. And I got a taste. Like, the first time I went out with them, I got a taste of what it was. And I was like, this is where I can thrive. Like, this, and here, like, I don't need a job. Like, I don't even need a place to live. I can live at my girlfriend's house, a friend's house. It's a fast life, honestly. Like, and she started teaching me, like, this is how you need to work with these men. Like, they will give you whatever you want. You make them think that you're gonna sleep with them. You're not. But you're pretty much, like, you're out here, like, selling yourself.
This is at 18.
This is 18, 19. This is like 18 to 20, I would say. 18 to 21, sorry, because I got pregnant at 21. So we were just out here meeting all these celebrities, partying with all these celebrities, going to celebrities' houses. But in the meantime, I wasn't sleeping with the celebrities, but I was like sleeping with other outside people, like the trainers or the things of that, and the people that would help you get to the party, because when you go to these parties, you have to make sure to be able to talk to people so that you can get invited to other things. And I was just I couldn't even tell you what my number was by then. And I was just all over the place, and that's where that's where like alcohol just like blackout, like complete blackout. I remember we went to this one party, I think it was at Bow Wow's house or something like that, and our drinks, they were tainted with something. And I just remember being so sick. One of my friends was out of the car just like throwing up everywhere, and like, but this was just a normal thing, like just like having like, I'm sorry, but orgies in the other room, just multiple people, like, oh, don't worry, he'll pay for it if I give him a blowjob. Like, just, that's just how the Hollywood scene was, just coke everywhere, and you just went along with it. You just had to keep your image up. And that's when I went and moved. I needed to get out of California. At this point, I'm working at Nordstrom, and I figured I always wanted to go to the East Coast. I could get a job and go to the East Coast. So I got transferred to King of Prussia Mall and started working there.
Pennsylvania?
Yeah.
Okay.
All by myself.
Why?
Because it's Alyssa at the time. I've never, ever been on a plane, never been out of the country, out of the state, like, just like, I need to get out of here. And so I literally found these girls that one of them was actually working at Nordstrom, one was going to a fashion school, and they're like, oh, we have a room for you. Didn't know them. Like, I'm from California, they're from Pennsylvania. And so moved in Philly, East Falls. So it was like a nicer part of Philly, at least. Didn't even realize how bad Philly was for me to just be moving out there. And moved in, and yeah, that's where I was like such an attraction out there, because now I'm just like Hispanic girl and whatever, and all the men loved me out there. And I met these two sisters, and they became like my family. One of them was a stripper, the other was a lesbian. And I remember her telling me, Alyssa, it's not cute anymore to be broke. It's not cute to be broke. And I was like, okay, well, what do I do then? Because I didn't come from raised like that. Like, I didn't come with the confidence to get up and go on a pole if I need some money. Like, and so if I'm struggling, all I know is, okay, go get another job or do something. Like, I wasn't raised. It wasn't until, like, I was starting to learn in the Hollywood scene, like, you can use men to buy you stuff, but everything else, I didn't know the hustle, kind of like that. And so she started teaching me, like, this is what you do out here. This is how we live. And so I told her, I was like, I cannot get on a pole. Like, I don't have that. I can't get on a pole, but I will work in the strip club. And so she got me a job as a bottle girl. And so you're pretty much walking around, like, with your booty cheeks out and just out there selling yourself. And your job is to flirt with these men to get them to buy bottles. And so I would work at Nordstrom from like morning to evening, and then go home, get ready, and then work at the strip club from like 9 to 5 in the morning, go home, take like a couple hour nap, and then go right back at it. And it was ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Wow.
But that's where I met my son's father, and found out that he was being scouted by like NFL teams and whatnot, and nothing really came of it in Philly other than some talking. And then I got in a fight with my roommates, got real bad. Me and one of them like physically started fighting. Went back home, and it was just supposed to be to get my life together, and I was gonna come back to Philly. Yeah. Okay. And went back home and got right back into the Hollywood life, because my parents wouldn't let me come back to their house. So I had to live somewhere, so I moved in with my friend that was still living in the Hollywood life. So I moved in with her. And
Alyssa, this is a movie. This is a movie.
My life is a movie. Oh, God, yeah, moved in with her. And now I'm living with her, so now, like, this is our lifestyle. Like, and she actually has, I think, a 5-year-old at this point. And he's pretty much, like, I remember, like, because I wasn't a mom at that time, so I was just like, oh, yeah, have him go with his grandma. Like, he was just always somewhere, just not with us, because he was, like, he was with us during the day, but if we're trying to go out, like, now you need to get taken care of. Yeah, so we were living it now. Now it's like night and day. Now I'm really like engulfed in this. Now, like, I don't even need her coaching. Like, I know what to do. I just came from Philly.
Right.
Like, I know what to do. And so now I am doing like the big parties with her, but I'm doing my own stuff now too. And so I'm with these men that I don't need her help anymore. And we're just in it. And a couple months go by, and my son's father reaches back out. Apparently, I'm assuming, saw me on social media and seeing me live my best life. And we started talking and FaceTiming like every day. And then he got injured, went back home, and he was like, come and visit. And so I went and visited. Didn't know that the house that I was going to was the house that him and his girlfriend of 5 years lived. Apparently they took a break and she wasn't there anymore. So I was there. I didn't know this man. I mean, I met him for like a second in Philly, but I didn't know this man to be flying out to Georgia from California. I've never been to Georgia in my life. And I remember like, the friend that I was living with, she's like, what if he doesn't show up at the airport? And I'm like, I didn't care at that point, because at this point, like, what's life? Like, let's just do it. And yeah, that was like the first time we ever really met. And going back to his house, and
okay, so you met him like,
yeah, it was just like
social media.
We met like in person for like like at the club.
Okay.
For like a second, and yeah.
Gotcha.
But it was not like we had this fling in Philly, and like, no, like, I didn't know this man from like a can of paint. Like, it was just, yeah, I was reckless.
Gotcha.
And that's where I was there for probably like 4 days before I realized like this man is not good, like, in any way. I remember like he would just leave me. I didn't have a car. I didn't know Georgia, so he would just leave, and I would be in the room, and for like 10 hours just sitting. Like, okay, are you coming back? I would just be sitting in the room. And there was this one time where we were in bed, and he like put me on top of him, and I was like, oh no, I'm not ready for that right now. And he literally was just like, he said something and got angry, and he literally picked me up and threw me like off the bed. And at that point, I remember going into the bathroom and calling one of my friends from California, and I'm like, I need to leave. I was like, I need to leave. And she goes, well, what are you gonna do? I'm like, I didn't have like $100 to my name. And I was just like, I don't know, but I need to leave. And so I remember calling my brother and telling him, like, I need you to send me money because I gotta go. Like, I can't be here anymore. And he was like, I'll send you what I have, but I can't get you a whole ticket. And so I remember Braden's dad came back, and he was like, well, I can give you this much. And it was just enough to get the plane ticket and pay for my luggage. And I remember he was supposed to take me to the airport the next day, and I couldn't be there anymore. I just could not be there anymore. So I packed my stuff up and I called an Uber, and I just left. And I remember sitting in the Atlanta airport for like probably like 6 hours, just sitting there because I couldn't be around him anymore. I just sat in the Atlanta airport for like over 6 hours probably until my plane. And I got on the plane, got back home, never heard a word from this man. Never heard a word, not checking if I got home, landed, and nothing. Never heard a word. So I'm like, you know what? I am done with that. Like, so done with that man. Never talking to him again. Went back to my safe place, my friend's house. Got back into the Hollywood thing. But a month later, because I was living this crazy life, I didn't realize any of the symptoms, because pregnancy symptoms are very similar to hangovers, And at this point, I'm like really going in hard with alcohol. And a month later, I remember me and that friend I was living with, we were out with some football player or something like that. And I just remember from head to toe, I was just in so much pain. Like, just like lethargic. Just my stomach was just like hard as rock and just hurt so bad. And I was just so ill so ill, and I thought I had a kidney infection. I was like, oh, I probably had a bladder infection that I didn't know about, because it was just like, it was all like just hard. And she's like, you need to go to the doctor and like figure out, because I couldn't even like stand up. I was just so sick. And so the next day I go to Planned Parenthood, because I didn't have insurance or anything. And so I go to Planned Parenthood and I'm like, hey, I need you to test me for a kidney infection. I think I got something. So they go in, they test me, and they come back and they're like, when was your last period? I was like, I don't know, because I never had regular periods, so I really didn't know. And I was partying so hard, so. And they're like, well, you're pregnant. And I remember just like the whole room literally went black. It just went black. Like everything went black. And I had to ask her like 5 times, like, what did she say? And then she handed me this paperwork about abortion and stuff like that. And I'm just sitting there, I'm like, I don't have a job. I just like came back from this whatever I did in Georgia. And now I'm partying and I don't even know where I'm living. And now I'm pregnant. And I knew for a fact it was his, because at that point I wasn't like sleeping around like I was before, and so I knew for a fact like who the father was. And yeah, I remember like when I left the room, I didn't even know how to like get out. I was so disoriented. Like they had to like literally be like, it's this way, like, because I didn't know which way was right.
Did you know how far along you were at that point?
No, I didn't, because I didn't know when my last period was. I didn't know anything. And I remember that day, and I was it's called Palmdale, so it's about like almost probably 2-hour drive back to like where my parents live. And I remember that day going back to where I lived, packing everything up, and then driving to my mom's job. I called her on the highway, and I was like, hey, I'm coming by, I just miss you, I want to talk to you. And she's like, okay. And I didn't even warn her. I just went into her office and I pulled out the paper, the Planned Parenthood paper that said, and I handed it to her, and all she saw was Planned Parenthood. She dropped it to the floor, and she just started crying. And I was like, I don't know what to say. And
You're 21.
I was 21 at this point. I just turned 21. And we went back home. And I was like, I just need my mom, though. I know that. I just need my mom. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to say, but I just need my mom. And so we went back to the house, and I was like, I don't know how to tell Dad. Because when I went to Georgia, that was the one thing he told me. He's like, do not get pregnant.
How are they going to shut you out of the house, shut you out of their life, and then tell you not to do that? Like,
it wasn't so much they shut me out of their life, but they didn't, I think they didn't know how to care for a child that was, because I didn't even know what happened to me in my past and why all of it triggered to this, let alone did I know how to express it to them. So for me, I'm coping, and the way that I'm coping is to just numb, and everyone around me, the people that are accepting me, they're partiers, so that's what I'm gonna do.
So they feel like maybe you were out of control.
Yeah, pretty much.
And to maybe protect their own self from what you're gonna do, they would keep you at bay. Okay.
Yeah, so I wouldn't say it was just they didn't know what to do, and I honestly don't believe they really wanted to even acknowledge what was going on, and like even say what was going on. So them just distancing themselves was, I guess, how they coped.
Gotcha.
And yeah, so I remember being so terrified to let my dad know, especially because my dad's anger and everything, and I was already scared. And so I remember I told him. And I've never seen him so angry in his life. He wouldn't talk to me for like 3 months. He wouldn't talk to me for like 3 months. I couldn't even be in the house. He wouldn't even look at me. And then I remember calling Braden's dad that day, and everything happened in that day. Like, I wasn't that person that like waited. Like, everything just came out that day. And I remember calling his dad that day, and he was just like, nope, get rid of it. Like, you're gonna ruin my life. Like, and this is right when he just got back cleared to go back and play football. And so he was just like, no, get rid of it. Like, this is not happening. And if you don't get rid of it, I'll make sure you get rid of it. And he's in Georgia at this point. And yeah, so right now, like, my dad hates me. The father of my unborn child hates me. Like, I don't have a job. I don't have money. I don't even have anywhere to live. Like, my mom is just like, because she got pregnant at 16. And so she's just completely disappointed. And so everything is just falling apart. And so I went and I was like, I don't know. I couldn't live with my friend anymore because I can't live that lifestyle now. And I knew that everything within me, I could not do an abort. I could not get an abortion. Like, it just wasn't an answer it wasn't a choice for me. It felt like, I felt like I felt like I needed to, like, this was like here for a reason. I don't know why, but so now I'm like, I don't even have anywhere to stay. So I remember my cousin allowed me to come sleep on her couch, but she was in an physically abusive relationship at the time. So I would be sleeping on her couch and hearing them. And so I was just couch hopping with my brother, with them, with whoever I could find a couch with while I'm pregnant. Stayed with my one friend who was in a studio. We literally slept on the same bed together. I was just everywhere and kept on getting kicked out of places. And then finally, that same cousin that was in that relationship, she was like, have you ever heard of, it's called St. Vincent's? And it's this program that takes in single moms and pregnant moms. And I thought this was just like amazing. Like, it was only like I guess $300 of rent. Like, they helped you, they made sure you got your GED, which I already had, but got a job, like gave you a room.
So you dropped out of high school?
No, I didn't.
Okay, so
I finished
high school. Okay,
yeah.
got you.
But they helped you if you didn't.
Okay, got you.
Yeah. So I was just like, and I haven't had my own room and I don't know how long. So I'm like, you get your own room? What? And so I moved in there and I was so excited. I was like, okay, this is where everything's gonna get better. And it didn't. It didn't. They were like slave owners in there.
Wow.
It was bad. There was literally the director of it literally sat and yelled and screamed and told this one woman who she already had a kid but she got pregnant again, that like look what you did to yourself. You already have a kid and now you're in this program and now you're pregnant again. And like she would just yell and just degrade us. And we would literally, like, I was like 8 months pregnant on like these railings, like cleaning windows. And like, yeah, it was just, they told me,
so bad.
they told me that I was lying about having a job and that I just literally and it was ran by nuns and stuff like that. Okay. Yeah. So it was absolutely awful. So I remember I was about to go into labor and they had this agreement that like you can go stay with your family and we'll save your spot and you can have like so much time without any rent being paid when you're about to give birth or after giving birth. So I'm like, cool. My mom agreed that I could come back home at this time so she can help out. And so I went and stayed with them for a couple weeks. And I remember after giving birth, I went back to like get some stuff or whatever, because all the stuff I had was there. Everything got stolen. And I mean, these rooms are locked and everything was stolen. I had my clothes, but like all my stuff was just stolen, just ransacked. And so I'm just like, I need to get out of here. I can't live here anymore. Now I have a newborn. And so I didn't have a place with my parents still. And so I went and stayed with my aunt. She gave me her son's room. And so she went onto the couch. She gave her son her room, and then I went into his room. And so I lived there for 3 months with my newborn child. And then she had to move. And so when she had to move, I went, my nana, on my dad's side, my dad's mom, allowed me to come stay with her. So lived with her for a few months. And then I forgot where I think I went. Oh, my mom and dad allowed me to come back to the house at this point now. So I think Braden's like almost 1 at this point. So I go back and live in the house there, and I stayed there for probably a year.
How was your relationship how was their relationship with him?
It was, they loved him. Like, my dad finally realized, like, because I said he couldn't look at me, but once he was born, he was like, okay, this is my grandson. Like, he fell in love with him. Like, that was his person. Especially now, they're like, you can't get them away from it. I'm pretty sure my son would choose my dad over me. And so they got really close, but when I moved into the house, it went from a grandparents relationship to now, like, they're almost like parents. And now, and I was using them as that too. Because now I'm at my parents' house. Oh, now they can watch my child. Oh, now I can go back and party.
Okay, so that never turned off.
No, it didn't. It didn't. I mean, it turned off when I had Brayden and I was going through all that. But
when
now
you had
that I'm
support,
settled and I have the support, I can go back and party. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, I need this. Like, and now I'm a new mom. I need to go have fun. I need to release.
And you've seen that example with your friend.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And so now my parents are no longer being grandparents. Now they're doing this. And so my mom has a problem with alcohol. I didn't care. And so I would come back home and my mom would be passed out and my son with like a rock hard diaper, like funky pajamas, however she put them on. But as long as I was able to go out and party and drink, and I remember coming back home and, like, you know, I don't know if you've ever gotten drunk, but like that fuzzy feeling you get when you're coming down from your drunk, and being around my son and like having to like feed him his bottle and stuff like that and take care of him, it was just so terrifying. I would pass out, honestly. But it was just that's where I felt okay, is when I was drunk and when I was drinking, when I was partying, and I went back to sleeping around, and the toxicity at my house was back, and now I'm seeing myself as a child in my son. So like when my dad's anger comes up and I see this face on my son, I'm seeing myself because I've never dealt with it. And so now I'm seeing myself on my son and I'm projecting my fears on my son. And so now I'm fighting with my dad. And now my dad is fighting with my mom because my mom's trying to stick up for me, but ultimately, like, my dad is the man. So it's just toxic. Now Brayden is having night terrors, like legit at 1 year old, having these awful night terrors where he's just screaming. It's almost like he was having a seizure. He was just screaming and yelling and hollering. He wasn't awake, but he was screaming, yelling, and hollering because all this stuff is happening. And honestly, he had trauma in the womb. I tried taking my life when I was pregnant because I couldn't do it anymore. And I went through a heavy depression when I was pregnant. So he had the trauma in the womb and then the trauma coming out. Now 1 year old, having these awful night terrors, and I couldn't explain them to my dad because my son is just screaming for hours means he's not sleeping.
Right.
And so now he's coming in and yelling and screaming, and I can't touch him because if I touch him, it's like awaking a sleepwalker. And it just became just this explosion in this house. And all of this stuff is in my childhood is coming up for me. And so I remember packing up, going to my aunt's house at like 5 a.m. and knocking on her door, and because I used to escape there a lot, his sister, and I told her, and she goes, just stay here. She lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with her and her son, and she said, just stay here. You and Brayden can have the room. Me and her son's Christian. Me and Christian will sleep on the couch. And so I moved me and my 1-year-old child into her house and let them go and sleep on the couch, completely not even thinking about her son. He's in, I think, junior high at this point.
Oh, wow.
How I'm affecting his life. And like I'm kicking him out of a situation where he doesn't even have a room in the first place.
Right.
Now you don't even have a house because now your mom is so worried about me that she's putting you aside so she can take care of me, and I'm not thinking about that because I'm thinking like I need help and I need to get out of this situation. And so I stayed there. We stayed there for a while. And then she ended up getting kicked out of that place because of us. And so she goes, I found a new place to live, but I can't take you guys. And I'm like, I wouldn't ask you to. I already made you lose that last one. I wouldn't ask you to do this for me again. But that meant that we were going to be homeless. Like I didn't know what else to do. And at this point, I have almost a 2-year-old. And so I remember.
You're 22 at this point.
I'm 22 at this point, yeah.
And at this point, you still don't have any relationship with God or anything.
I mean, my aunt has the little Jesus loves you signs in her house and stuff like that. But
Does that make you curious at all?
I mean, I was that, like I said, I remember doing, praying, because I used to have demonic dreams when I was pregnant. It was crazy. And I remember waking up and just being so scared that I would literally, pray, God, make this go away. I don't want to have another dream. So I would be, that kind of relationship, but I didn't really know who I was talking to, but I knew you prayed to someone, to him. And so that's about it. I've never read the Bible. I've never had an experience with God. I've never had any of these things, really. I knew that at this point, my aunt wasn't even going to church anymore. So I hadn't been to church probably since junior high.
What kept you in hope to live, to keep going?
I don't know. I went through a lot of suicidal times. And I think, honestly, it was the partying and the drinking that maybe kept me alive, because at least when I was partying and drinking, I had some kind of meaning. And so looking forward to the next party, the next blackout, the next thing kind of gave me hope, or finding the next man. Maybe this man will secure me. Maybe this man will do it for me. But once I got to that point with my aunt having to move and me not knowing where to go, I remembered calling Braden's dad. At this point, we were talking. He was not really. I would send him pictures and stuff like that, but it was nothing healthy. His goal at this point was to make my life a living hell, because I ruined his life pretty much. And so I remember calling him and being like, me and your son are about to be homeless. And I said, your daughter is back home with you. And at this, I'm thinking she's living this wonderful life, but I'm assuming she's living this wonderful life. She's living back home with her mom and you in this house, and me and your son are about to be homeless. You need to do something. Something needs to be figured out. And he goes, well, you guys can come move out here. I'll get you a place, blah, blah, blah. And I can help you get with school and help you with the kid and everything. It just sounded perfect. So, told my parents about that. My parents disowned me for about a month. They were just so angry that I would go out there because they hated him, and they had every right to. But they hated him. But I literally used everything I could use in California. So moved out to Georgia. And he got to the place that he was paying the rent for us, Braden's dad, roach infested, just awful, nasty. But I was like, I've never had my own place. I have a roof over my head.
Is this,
yeah.
Is this Atlanta?
Yeah. Oh, Lawrenceville. Little Burn.
Little Burn?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was just like, be grateful. You have a roof over your head. But he paid the rent. He had the car. He took me to work. He picked me up from work. He brought me home. If I wanted to do anything on the weekends, I had to call him. He had all the control. He had the key to my house. He had all the control. And I didn't have any control. And so, in a way, he set it up for that fact.
Right.
And so when I came down, I was like, I want to get on the good graces of Braden's sister and and her mom, and I want the family to like me. I want to redeem myself in a sense, because I ultimately, even though I had my kid first, I was still the other woman. And yeah, so I tried, and when he noticed that me and her were trying to be friends, he was like, that can't happen, because then I can't have both of you, and I can't control. And so he pinned us against each other. And the control got really bad. He started lying, oh, I'm going to leave her, I want to be with you, I had all these plans for us, blah, blah, blah. And it was his way of like getting us against each other. And so now he has full control. He comes over, he tells me when we're gonna have sex. Like, he would just come over after work at like 11 o'clock at night and just expect it. And he paid for everything, he did for everything, so I just had to go with it. And he just had so much control that it literally was scary. It was just and then she found out what we were doing. And so now me and her hating each other now. Now we're in competition because now she knows what we're doing. And now she's like, oh no, he's not yours, you're not winning. So now she's fighting for it. And so now he's living his like dream now. And now we are hating each other. And now the kids are in the midst of it. Because now I'm like, oh no, you're not getting Brayden. Not if she's around. And now the kids are in the midst of it. And now like he's being extra sneaky. And now me and her can't even be in the same area. They went on a family trip and he came to pick Brayden up. And I told him, if you bring her, like, do not bring her to my house. He ended up bringing her. And I remember walking out and seeing her, and we lost it. And if it wasn't for him, he broke it up. Like, I don't know what would have gone on, but I remember we were screaming at each other in front of the kids. The kids are in the car, and
How old are they?
They're 2.
Okay.
Yeah, and me and her just screaming and yelling at each other, and he's holding her back, and I'm over here. And
he's loving it.
And I just left my kid in the car. And I went back into the house. And I let my kid go with him and with her after all of that. And because it meant that I got a week vacation away from Brayden. And from there, it was just like that. It was just awful. Toxic. Finally to the point where I was like, I can't live under your control anymore. I made really good friends with one of his cousins that was my age, had a son that was Brayden's age. They were really close, and I was like, can I please come live with you? I can't live under his control anymore. And she used to see it because we would party together, and we would party with him together. And so she used to see the control that he had, and she goes, yeah, you can come live with me. So she put her son in her room, and then me and Brayden had the other room. And that's when I started getting into relationships. They weren't really relationships. It was just me sleeping with one guy. But it was like back to back to back. Drinking was still a thing. Partying was still a thing. And now I'm doing that. I think I lived with her for probably like 8 months, almost a year. And then she was moving. So I was like, okay, I need to find a place. Went and found a place in Athens. I didn't know anything about Georgia. I didn't even know what Athens was, but they had really cheap rent. Went and found a place in Athens. Moved in there. My first place that I got all by myself. I was barely making the rent.
What were you working?
I was a nanny.
Okay.
For this family that paid me like $7 an hour. Yeah. But I was a nanny, and
did it allow you to bring Brayden with you?
Sometimes if I needed to, but being a nanny, I was able to get government assistance as well. So it was like a way to make it work. And Brayden's dad was not in the picture at this point. He was very in and out because his focus was not on the kids, on Brayden. It was ultimately on us. Now I'm gone. Now I'm not available. Now he's not around. And so lived there for a while and got into some really toxic, like abusive relationships. Got with this one man, and this is probably the first time I'm telling this story out loud. I mean, there's one other person in my life that knows about it, but I don't think I've ever told it. We got with this man, and I remember not wanting to have sex with him, but he did the whole thing like, I'm a grown man, la la la, like if I want to have sex with my whoever I wasn't even a girlfriend, I'm going to. I ended up having sex with him and finding out that I was pregnant. And it was like PTSD. It was like everything from Brayden's dad came back to me, but now I have a kid. I already have a kid. And I'm like, I can't do this with a kid. Like, I can't do this again. And I remember telling the guy that I was pregnant, and he said the same exact thing as Braden's dad. And he even said, like, I'm praying you have a miscarriage. Like, if you won't go get an abortion, like, I pray that you have a miscarriage and something awful happens or whatever. And I didn't know what to do. I couldn't do it. I just was in so much fear, and abortion was never something that I ever thought would be for me, but I felt like I was literally up into a corner.
Yeah.
And I worked with a family that was Christian, and they were like, well, we can help you as much as possible, and I remember telling them, I think I know what I need to do. And I called my aunt, the one that I used to live with, and she flew down with my cousin, and they took me to the clinic, and I took the pill. It's an abortion pill instead of doing the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the day before going, I think it was 2 days before going into the clinic to have the abortion, I was like, well, if I'm not keeping the baby, then I can drink, right? And so 2 days before, I was drinking with my cousin, because it didn't seem like that big of a deal to me. I'm not having the kid, so why not drink?
Mm-hmm.
Not knowing what alcohol was to me. Went in and had the abortion. It was the most painful thing I've ever experienced. And they left, I think they left 2 days after it. And because they were there, and because we were drinking, and because, like, everything was going on, I didn't cope with it. Like, my cousin would be like, how do you feel? I'm like, I'm fine. I didn't cope with it because I had them to distract me. The second that they left, I remember coming back to the house and just feeling this darkness over me. There's just complete darkness and just depression. And I couldn't even, I couldn't shake it. I was just it literally felt like everything was dark. And I was just heavy. And I couldn't even find a smile. And I remember finally going back to work, and I was still bleeding. Going back to work, and they were trying to be nice and be like, how do you feel? Can we do anything? I'm like, I don't want to talk about it. Like, I have the right not to talk about it. You guys want to talk about it. They took that disrespectfully. And I did not want to talk about it because clearly I haven't even coped with it. And so talk about it, and so I dealt with it in anger. And I was like, I don't want to talk to you guys about it. And I probably was being disrespectful, but I genuinely did not want to talk about it. Ended up getting fired because I was being disrespectful. So now I'm unemployed. Just had this happen. And
Sure. Let me ask you, what was your relationship like with Braden at this point?
I could not see. Toni Collier said it best. When she talked about looking at your children resentfully because they came from the darkest part of your life. And so I didn't put the words to it, but I didn't realize that I couldn't even look at my son. I loved him, of course I loved him, but I didn't have the relationship that I have now with him because he came from the darkest part. He ruined my life. Like, now I can't even cope the way that I normally cope with my life. And you know how much harder it is to go out and party and numb myself now that I have a kid? Especially now that I'm in Georgia and his dad's not even a part of his life anymore. Now I'm stuck with this kid. So at this point, I resented my kid. I hated being a mom. I hated everything about everything. And now all of this just happened, and I just lost my job, and everything's falling apart. And I remember packing Braden's stuff up, like packed all his clothes up, and I drove him to his grandma's house in Monroe, so it wasn't too far from Athens. Drove him to his grandma's house in Monroe, and knocked on her door, and I put the bag in front of her, and I just left. And I guess she put two and two together. And so I went and bought a bottle of tequila, and I went to the house, and I drank too much to the point where I passed out. Woke up the next day, and I'm like, wow, I couldn't even do it. And so now I'm just angry at myself. Now, like, the whole day was set up for it. And I remember I texted my parents, and I said, I texted my brother, and I said, this is Braden's dad's number. I want you to stay in contact with Braden. I want you to stay in his life. And I remember he called me. I didn't have my phone, so I didn't answer. And so he went and called my parents. And my parents went and called his dad. And so now I know that I want to kill myself, but I'm so scared. So now I'm literally drank like majority of that bottle because I'm so scared, but I know this is what needs to happen. And so his dad's now calling me, and I don't have my phone, and I'm sitting on the kitchen floor with the bottle of tequila right here and with the knife over here, and I was so drunk that I couldn't even I didn't have the the will, like the muscles to push the knife down hard enough. So I had cuts, but they weren't enough to like clearly do what I was trying to do. And then I don't remember, I must have blacked out then. And I remember, I don't know how much longer, I hear Braden's dad and his stepdad come into the room. Now I'm in the room, and I'm in the bed, and they come in, and I hear his dad going, I told you it was all just an act. And I'm still drunk, but I'm not blacked out anymore. And so his stepdad comes and tries to talk to me, and I just have this rage. And I'm screaming and yelling, and I'm like, get the H out of my house, like just going off on them. And I'm still trying to slam the door on them, trying to push them out of the house, like throwing things at them. And they tried, like his dad already was gone. But his stepdad tried to like help, like calm me down. But he could only take so much abuse from me before he was like, all right, there's nothing else I can do, I'm gonna leave. And so he left, and I packed up my stuff, and I don't know, I got in the car. I don't know what I was gonna do. Got in the car and just started driving, and I was just weeping. And I remember calling.
You're drunk.
I'm drunk still, yeah. I remember calling my brother. So my brother has always been like one of my best friends. Calling him, and he's hyperventilating at this point. He's like, how could you do this to me? Like, how could you do this to me? How could you even think about doing this? And I just didn't even have words because I didn't know. And I'm just sitting now. I'm like finally pulled over. I'm sitting in a parking lot, and I don't know what to do. I don't know. I can't just keep on driving, but I also can't just go back to the house and act like nothing happened. But like now, like his dad's texting me saying he has Braden, he's at the house, and now all I want is to see my kid. And I'm just like, but I can't just go and see my kid after doing all this. So I didn't know what to do. And his dad allowed me to come over. Oddly, I don't know why. I know I wouldn't, but he allowed me to come over and see Braden because I told him I need to hug Braden, and I had band-aids all around my arm and everything. I just need to hug Braden. And I remember sitting and talking to his dad. One of the realest conversations I had. And there's this thing that you go through when you have an abortion. It's kind of like after having childbirth, the postpartum, but it's even more intense because now your body is not prepared for the hormones to go from here to here. And so on top of me already being in a depression from everything going on, now I had that as well.
Hormones crashing,
yeah. And so we just talked about like all of that, and he just allowed me to just express myself. It was weird, but just allowed me to express myself of what just happened. It was so surreal, and everything was just, and I ended up going back home that night. I don't even really remember that night, but I went back home that night. The next day was Mother's Day. And yeah, I remember begging him, can I please come? Because he had Braden at his mom's celebration or whatever. Can I please just come see him? And so I went in, and I remember everyone just looking at me like a crazy person. Like, I remember even someone came up to him, and I heard it, and they were like, why is she here? Like, just looking at me like a crazy person. And he let me take Braden home that night. And that night, I guess I just got back into life. Never really talked about it, dealt with it. My parents never talked about it. They never asked me if I was okay. They never came down. Like, everyone just went on with their lives. Everyone went on with their lives. Then got into this relationship with this man. It was like that, like, honeymoon right away. We just loved each other, fell in love with each other. Everything was just amazing. This was like probably a month after everything just happened. He doesn't know anything about it, but we're just in love with each other. And we ended up, I didn't have a job. Finally got a job, but it was out by him. So he's like, just come move in with me. So moved in with him, me and Brayden. And everything was beautiful at first. And then you start realizing you're living with someone that you don't even know. Like, we're having sex, we're drinking, we're doing all this stuff. Like, he is triggering everything in me, and it just started getting toxic, abusive, everything. And it got to the point when I finally left, the whole house was destroyed from top to bottom. Just like, we got in the biggest fight you've ever imagined. And Brayden was in the other room, and like literally furniture is getting thrown. Like, there's this marble table that is so heavy. I remember just flipping it, and he's throwing things, I'm throwing things, we're yelling, we're screaming. The house is just looks like a tornado went through. And I finally left that place, moved into the place that I'm in right now. That was in 2019, end of 2019. Moved into this place 2020 that I'm in now, and this place where I am now was stability. Like, this is mine. Like, I'm here. I can pay for this. I can handle this. Like, now I have a job and all of that. But now it's like odd. Like, I could start seeing God doing a different working in me now. But now I remember something happened, and now I'm like, now I have my own place, so now I can bring people around. And now Brayden is back with Dad, and we're having this like switch off schedule. So now I have like 4 days all to myself, and I can't be alone. Absolutely cannot be alone. So I need to be out partying. I need someone at my house. I cannot be alone. So now men and partying, and now the alcoholism is is real. Now it's real. And I just remember just having like a list of these men that would just like, this is what this one's for, this one's for. Like, it was just, it was bad. And started just going, sleeping around, doing all of that. And then I met this one guy on a dating app.
Tinder?
No, I think it was like Bumble or something like that. Met him on a dating app, and he was a Christian. And this is the one, like, the first time I can remember, like, actually seeing Christianity, like, in its, like, what it's supposed to be, but it wasn't really what it was supposed to be. And I just, like, I don't know, he wasn't very attractive to me, but the Christianity in him interested in me. I don't know why. I honestly, clearly it was God, but I don't know. I didn't know why. And I remember we would talk and text, and even, like, before we even, like, started, like, talking, like, it was toxic. He was so manipulative and, like, very, he would gaslight, and, like, it was just weird. But, like, I was like, but he's a Christian. And so the very first date he took me out on was to a bar, and we got drunk. Like,
okay.
We got drunk, and he came back up to my house, and we profusely made out. And we didn't do anything, but we, like, profusely made out. And I remember being like,
he's a Christian.
But why is he making out with me like the worldly men do? But he was a Christian. That was my excuse. He's a Christian. And then I remember him starting to talk to me about victory. And I'm sorry, victory.
Oh my
God. We are a hospital though, remember?
Yes.
Started to talk to me about victory.
I wasn't expecting that, but
yeah. And like, I would just ask him all these questions, all these curious questions, and he had the answers. And then we just, like, we stopped talking, like, things. I remember I went back home for Christmas and got really drunk and started being stupid on the phone. He didn't like it. We stopped talking. And then a while goes by. I go out to, I think it's the Battery, and he ended up being there with a friend. And so we met up, and I don't remember drinking as much as I drank. I really only remember, I only bought one drink, and that's the only drink I really remember drinking, other than him going and getting me a drink. And then after that drink, it was like blackout.
So something in your drink?
I don't know. But I can, if I sit here and remember, like, I only remember buying myself one drink, and then he bought me a drink, and that's all the drinks I had. And so to black out off 2 drinks from how I normally drink was odd. Whether it was him or someone else, I don't know. Or whatever it was, I don't remember, but I ended up being so drunk. And I guess I invited him back to my house. Where
Braden's with dad.
Braden's with dad, yeah. Invited him back to my house, and I blacked out when I got home. I remember blacking out, and so I don't remember letting him in. I don't remember anything. But I can like these. It was like these flashbacks. I remember being on the couch and being like, "No, we're not supposed to do this." Like you said, because he said, "I'm waiting until marriage," and so I'm like, "No, we're not supposed to do this. We're not." I remember repeatedly saying it over and over again. We're not supposed to do this. We're not supposed to do this. We're not supposed to do this. And then I woke up and we were both naked in the bed, and that's all I remember. I don't remember anything else. And then in the morning, he told me that it was like, he said that I was really annoying because I kept on telling him we're not supposed to do this, and it was like, it was almost a turn off. And
almost okay.
and I remember just being confused because I'm like, wait, what even happened? Like, I remember being at the bar, but like after getting home, I don't remember. Like, how'd you get into my house? Like, how did anything happen? He was like, oh, I was at your. I remember ringing. I was ringing the doorbell a lot and knocking and calling. I went and looked at my phone. I had like 10 missed calls. I'm like so like he really like was like, I'm coming in, and I don't remember opening the door to him or letting him in or him even being in my house. The only thing I remember was being on the couch and saying we're not supposed to do this. And he left that day, went to church.
He left and went to church?
Yeah.
Victory?
Yeah. And I remember him saying, we were texting, and he said something about church. I'm like, I want to go with you one day. And he goes, well, that's kind of intimate. And I'm like,
sir.
And I was like, but I even said it, I was like, but didn't we just have sex? And it was just from there, it was just, now I'm trying to cope with, wait, I don't remember having sex, but we had sex. Like, I don't remember, like, and I remember talking with Krista, like, was that, like, what happened? Like, I didn't even have words for what it was, because I'm like, I invited him over, but I was so drunk at that point, nearly blacked out. I don't remember letting him into my house, like, and apparently we had sex, but I don't know it. I was like, I don't know what to call that, but I know that it didn't feel right. And just having to cope with that, and then him just like completely ghosting, but like then I think a couple months later, I just got this urge. I was just so done with living this life. I was so done with like sleeping around. I was so done with just this darkness that I allowed to loom around my life. I was so done with it. And I remember reaching out to him and being like, can you tell me about Victory? And he gave me and this was after everything, like we weren't even talking, but he answered and he told me about Victory. And I was like, he told me the locations, he told me the times, I was asking my questions. And I remember sitting on the couch, I remember the day, sitting on the couch and being like,
2020.
Yeah, 2021, I think. May of 2020.
So COVID situation?
Yeah,
okay.
I believe. It was either 2020 or 2021. This is my second year in Victory.
Okay.
So, whatever that math is. And I'm sitting down and I'm like, I can either go now or I can just be scared for the rest of my life. Because I was nervous. I'm like, I've never been to church like this. Like, I don't know, it felt different.
I have so many questions. Yeah, so many questions. What? Okay. It's just, obviously I know you now. I see you now. And like he did, like what would attract you to go there and he's not living, well, although you don't even know what the Christian model is and what it's supposed to be, but you can feel this is not right. But then you feel like, let me ask him where he's going. Why?
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. I still ask where did this fire come from? Where did this interest come from? Like I told you, like I didn't really have any interest before.
God using things.
Yeah, I don't, and I wish I had an answer because I would love to hear it, but I don't know what made me have an interest in, for some reason. I've heard, and I remember sitting and having a conversation with this same guy and being like, I would never go to a Christian event. Christians are hypocrites, they're awful people, they're this, they're that. I hated Christians, and because of what I've seen from Christians. And
but he was also a prime example.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't, for some reason, when he said victory, it just sat in me.
Gotcha.
And okay. I don't know. And
that's interesting.
And I was like, we're gonna go.
Okay.
We're gonna go. And I had no clue. I went to Norcross. It started at Norcross. I had no clue how big Norcross was. No clue at all.
So it was just you and Braden at this point. Okay.
I'm thinking it's like this little
house church.
Like that's literally what I'm thinking, because if the little bit that I remember of like going as a kid, it was little tiny churches. Yeah. And so that's what I'm thinking I'm going to. I show up and it's big old victory, and the anxiety wasn't really a part of my life anymore, because now I'm coping in other ways. The anxiety that came over me, I couldn't even breathe. Like I literally could not breathe, and I remember just shaking and just being so scared. But somehow I went in there. I don't know who told me about where kids go, and I don't remember any of it. Honestly, I don't.
Take them.
I don't know where I sat. I don't. But I remember. I believe Johnson was speaking and hearing the sermon, and I remember it speaking to me. And I remember texting that guy and being like, "That was amazing." And so I just kept on going. Me and Braden kept on going. And then I found Fusion. And because I'm like, I know that there has to be something for younger people. I always hear about this young stuff. And finally found Fusion. And the first day that I went to Fusion, I remember talking to him again, being like, he explained Fusion to me. I want to go. He explained it to me. He's like, you should go.
And he was going?
No, I don't remember seeing him at first. Yeah. I don't remember seeing him at first. But the first time I went, I remember the second that I walked into the doors, because you go to like that other side, walked into the doors, I'm like, my jaws got tight. Like I literally thought I was gonna throw up. And I was so nervous. I used to hide in the bathroom. I was just so nervous, but I remember like that was the first experience with Jesus, I feel like. Yeah. That was my first experience with Jesus, and that's when I started building community. Because before, when I was just going to Victory for I think I was going for a month before I found Fusion. I was just in and out. I didn't even know what I was gathering, but I knew something was shifting in me. But when I did that, I remember I started praying when I was before Fusion. And I remember praying and telling God, I can't do this alone anymore. Because when I started going to Victory, God took every man out of my life. This is when Braden's dad disappeared, because some trauma happened to Braden. His dad decided to leave. So now I haven't, he took every man, all the men that I was messing with, everything.
Was your dad in your life?
Not really at this point. I wasn't really talking to him. And I knew that I couldn't really talk about this faith stuff with them either. And so, yeah, I remember I was just so alone. At first, it was great because I was on fire. I was reading the Bible. But then I was just like, I felt alone. And I remember this was before Braden's dad left. I would just be those times where now I'm not partying. Now I'm not doing anything. Now I just have to sit and fester in everything that I've coped from.
So you can't really describe what happened to you in terms of what made you want to turn around, what made you want to seek God. It was
the only thing I can think of was this interest in this guy that I wasn't even attracted to.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe it was that. Okay. Maybe thinking, okay, he's not all that cute.
But he's Christian.
And he's something's drawing me
nice.
to him.
And he's supposed to be. He said that he doesn't want to have sex until marriage. And
well, here we are, naked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I understand.
And I remember praying and telling God, I need community. I can't do this alone. I can't do this anymore alone. And the next day, I went to church, sat in my same spot, and ran into this girl that goes to Fusion. and she invited me to go to, it was like that volleyball tournament thing, and I went with her, and that's when I ran
You weren't
into
scared?
these. I was terrified. I was terrified. And then she ended up I didn't know that they were gonna play. She was playing volleyball, so we went together, and she's like, okay, bye. I'm like, wait, what? And now me and Brayden are just there standing by ourselves, and I didn't know what to do with myself. And so I was like, okay, Brayden, let's just go outside and get like a cone of ice or something. And I'm standing out there, and that's when we run into these other two girls who, like, that's where my community sparked from. And once that community started, like, that's when God started doing a work in me. And I remember sitting on the couch drinking wine, because I wasn't drinking hard liquor anymore, but I was drinking wine. And I remember sitting on the couch drinking wine and talking to my brother. And I kind of had this, like, buzz. I wasn't drunk, but I had a little buzz. And my brother's like, what's wrong with you? I'm like, what are you talking about? He goes, I don't know, you sound weird. You sound, like, congested or something. And I remember feeling a conviction about being buzzed. Because it was just a random day. Like, I didn't need to be drinking, but I just was. And I remember feeling this conviction, and then he went and said that, because I was feeling it already before. I was like, for some reason, feeling it emphasized now. And then he went and said that comment, and after he said that comment, I just felt this just like disgust about myself. And I had to get off the phone with him, and I went and I got the wine bottle and I poured it out in the sink. And I was like, I'm not drinking anymore. I'm done with drinking. And I just went cold turkey like that. And then, yeah, that's where everything started. He just started doing the work in me. Where he was just pulling everything out of me, pulling everything down, bringing everything out of me. And I just started just like seeing everything. I remember one day just repenting for absolutely everything that I had ever done to Brayden. And allowed Brayden to see. I remember sitting and just crying to Brayden and just asking for his forgiveness and just literally just bringing it all to God. I probably cried for like a straight 6 months just because there was just so much. And just seeing, I've always wanted family. I've always wanted this just family that just loves and all my life, my son has been a burden. He's been a burden to me. He's been a burden to everywhere because we've never had a place. He's been a burden to his father. He's been a burden. And now I'm walking into Victory and I'm walking into Fusion. Now my son, like, people love Brayden. Like, Brayden walks into Fusion, he's like, bye, Mom. And I know he's taken care of because he has a squad. And I'm just like, and I remember the girls being at my house and being like, they called me out one day and they're like, stop apologizing. Because I've always had to apologize for my son because my son's always been a burden. And they said, stop apologizing. And I'm like, what are you talking about? They're like, stop apologizing for Brayden being a kid. Like, he's not doing anything wrong. And they just sat me down and just, like, literally smacked me with truth. And I just remember just, like, being in the midst of this family and this community that I've always wanted. And every person that was around me was pushing me towards God. And I just, like, it just built this fire in me of, like, literally it felt like a light switch, like, from dark to light. Like, God just came and just turned the light on. Because for 26 years, I was trying to do everything I could to get out of this, but I was just in this darkness. And then all of a sudden, he just went... And it wasn't, I mean, honestly, my life was harder than it was before. Because now I have a kid that's been a part of sexual abuse. Now I'm dealing with all of my past that I've never ever wanted to ever deal with. Now I'm dealing with it, and it's all coming out at once. Now I'm not drinking anymore. Now I'm not coping through men anymore.
Yeah, when you face it.
Yeah, and life was hard. And it was, but I couldn't tell you how happy I was. And how at peace it was, and how just, like, I've never experienced... I thought Brayden was my first experience with love. And then God came around. And I remember just falling to my, like, knees and just, like, weeping. Because, like, just feeling... He allowed me to feel. And he allowed me to heal. And healing... I'm still going through the healing process, obviously. But to look at myself now, where I am now, compared to where I was 2 years ago, like, I still cry. Because I'm just like, the mother that I am, the relationship that I have with my son now, like, I couldn't even imagine. I have to remind myself not to condemn myself, because where I am now with my son, like, I can't even imagine the person that allowed what she allowed to happen. Because now I'm just like, my relationship with him is like, I remember saying a prayer and telling God, like, I need you to help me parent. I need you to co-parent with me, because I don't know what I'm doing. And ever since I said that prayer, like, even the things that I do with him or say to him or how I react to something, I'm like, that was not me. That was not me. But I just sit and I just look at him, and he went from being the darkest part of my life to now being like, he is a like, God has been showing me, like, this kid, this boy is a protector. Like, he has been in the midst, he's fought demons for me. Like, this kid is, I just look at him and I'm just like, he doesn't even understand. Like, I'll go up to him and be like, I'm sorry. Like, he doesn't even understand, because they're so resilient. And yes, like, I can see, like, trauma within him, but, like, now, instead of having a mother that allowed awfulness to be around him, he has a mother that's literally warring for him. Like, it's insane. Even just going from where I was sexually and the alcohol and everything to being like, I love being alone now. I love being alone. Like, I'm, like, literally begging to be alone now. Before, I couldn't even thought of it was terrifying. Now I can sit in my house and breathe and love it. And now, like, I remember just the conversations I have with God, the prayer I've learned, getting my prayer language, getting baptized. Like,
when were you baptized?
I was baptized my birthday weekend. My birthday weekend last year. So I'm officially baptized for a year now. I wasn't supposed to they weren't going to do a baptism that week. And I was no. They were going to do a baptism with 3 other people, and it was going to be me and 2 other people. 2 of them ended up not being able to do it anymore, and they were going to cancel it, but someone vouched for me, I don't know who, and they ended up keeping it. And that was my birthday weekend, and it was literally just for me.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and I've had the privilege of baptizing someone.
Oh, wait a minute. I think I was there.
Were you? You probably were on stage. It was at Norcross.
Yeah. No, I sang that day, and I remember when you got baptized. Sorry, I just remember that. I'm like, I'm Alyssa. I was like, okay, yes, I was there. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
So sorry, I remember your name. So every time I saw you, I said, hi, Alyssa. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah.
That's so crazy. Oh.
Yeah.
I think that might have been, well, no, it wasn't. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I've just been on this journey, and I can just, like, even the people that hear the sliver of my testimony, they're like, what? Like, I thought you've been in Christian, like, all your life, the way that you, like,
you walk,
speak.
when I see you, you walk with such, like, confidence in who you are, and you're not going to believe this. Confidence in who you are, just an amazing present mom. I can see that in you. It's crazy how God uses, like, people who've been through the worst to be the most loyal people to others. And, like, you were there for my book launch, and you were there for your other friend's book launch. It was like, I don't know. These seem like small things, but it takes a lot for people to make themselves available, especially when you have a child and other things you have to think about. And so I'll say that to say that hearing your story now, it doesn't represent anything that I see. Like, now, I can't say that you look like what you've been through. So
I want it to be. I want to be that testimony. And for the longest time, I just wanted her to disappear. Like, I wanted her. I mean, she did die, but I wanted her to die and never have been born. because she was despicable. Like, the mother she was, the woman she was, the girl she was, like, everything about her was so, she degraded herself. And anyone that could do that to her child, like, how could she be okay with herself? How can she call herself a mother? I hated her. And now I remember sitting and looking back at old pictures. I got into, like, an old Snapchat or something, and I looked back at old pictures. And I looked at her and I said, I'm sorry for what I did to you. And I was able to look at her and not hate her, but feel for her. Like, really feel for her and be like, you just needed someone. God, you just needed love. You needed that, his arms, honestly. And now it's like, now my healing journey is not just for me. Mm-hmm. Now my healing journey is not even just for my son. Like, now my healing journey is for everyone that God has me to speak over and speak to and come into contact with. Like, because I want to be the testimony where I can freely speak. The devil has had his grasp upon my testimony for so long because of shame. And there's even some things that I didn't even say in this podcast, mm-hmm. because I'm still trying to find the courage to fully say it. But he's had this grasp around my testimony for so long, and now I'm finally like, I want to put it back, and I want to put it fully in God's hands. And he's shown me a purpose, and he's shown me a future of just helping. And like that one woman said, like, God has trusted you with trauma. And I just want to be that testimony of just, if I can be here, if I did all that, if God turned Saul to Paul, mm-hmm. like, if God turned Alyssa to who she is now, like, there is no fear. I don't want anyone to have a fear that they cannot come to God because they've done too much. Mm-hmm. Because I was honestly me for a while. Even when I was at Victory, I did too much. Like, and so my relationship with God was just my relationship with God. I couldn't go out and tell, because once you hear what I came from not that long ago, you guys wouldn't even talk to me, you wouldn't even look at me. Yeah. And so I want people to believe that it doesn't matter what we've done. God takes everything and makes it beautiful. Like, he took a man from Victory that was far from a Christian, and now look at where I am.
But I just, oh my gosh, like, I've talked to a couple of different people, and I'm just hearing other people's testimonies and how the enemy tried so hard to perverse Jesus. Yeah. And how it just never worked. And for it to happen in the worst way for you. I'm sorry. I'm just in shock. I cannot believe that happened. But like, for that to happen in the worst way for you with that guy, and it's still point you to Christ. Yeah. Sorry, Satan.
It shows you the power of our Father. Yeah. It really does. Because that could have easily hardened my heart.
It really could have.
Easily. Because everything else hurt in my heart. I remember speaking to him about hating Christians. Yeah. But for some reason, this man that did this one thing that I had past traumas that I've dealt with before, and he does it, and it directs me to God. Mm-hmm. Like, there is no understanding of that other than but God. Like,
he uses the foolish things to confound the wise. So would you say you discovered God in shame? You discovered God in darkness?
I discovered God at a time, I believe that I was running from God all my life. Honestly, I found out recently, probably a couple months ago, that I was saved at 12. And the devil is sneaky. He'll take memories from you. He'll capture memories from you. That same husband that my aunt had, I guess we went on a winter retreat, like a youth retreat up in the mountains. I don't remember it. I see pictures, but I don't remember it. And we were driving somewhere, and he pulled over for some reason. He was like, "Do you want to declare Jesus as your Lord and Savior?" I guess I said yes, and in that moment, I got saved. I didn't know that all my life until recently. God brought it back to me. And so I had a covering over me.
Clearly.
And now, because I remember, and he didn't bring it back to me until I asked him. I said, God, if I wasn't a daughter of yours, like if I wasn't saved, if I like didn't know about you, why did I have so much favor in my life? Like, yes, I went through all this, but you still favored me, you protected me. I wasn't even a child of yours, to my knowledge. And he brought me back to that memory, and I remember texting my uncle, and he confirmed it, and I'm just like, and so I believe that all my life, like, I was running from God. I was trying to do everything I could in my power to protect myself, provide for myself, do what I needed to do. And God waited until the moment that he knew was right.
And I'm grateful for that.
Yeah. Because I can't imagine any other time that it would have worked other than his perfect timing. So I think I found God at the time that he planned me to find him. Like he was by my side no matter what, throughout everything I was putting B through, throughout everything I put his temple through, throughout everything I was doing, throughout all the alcohol, throughout all of the blackouts, throughout all of the, I remember like sex, literally, I just would lay. I wouldn't even be present. I was a dead fish. I didn't even have, it was either a controlling factor or I was just, this is what you want. But God was still there. And now, like, my mentor said, she goes, what does celibacy mean to you? Because it can't just be a religious thing. You need to figure out what it means to you. I said, it means healing. God is giving me this time to heal. Because I know once I find my husband, I'm going to be healed and I will be able to walk into a marriage where I'm not taking this hurt and this pain and this trauma. I'm not going to be taking all of the men that I laid down with. I'm taking my health and I'm taking my purity. I'm walking in as a virgin too. And
you know my testimony, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So now I can just see you and your husband, him just honoring you, honoring your body, and taking you. It'll be like the first time, because it'll be the first time you feel like you're valuable. He cares about what he's doing to you. I can see maybe you and your husband being able to build something where you're providing housing for single moms and things like that, to where it's an actual place for comfort and an actual place to experience God's love, even through being a single mom, being whatever, even though it's not the traditional way or whatever. But because of what you've been through, you're able to give them that compassion that they need, and they'll be able to meet Jesus through you. Isn't that cool? Wouldn't that be cool? I can see that.
That's literally if anyone were to ask me, like, what do you want to do in life? That's exactly, I want to have a foundation for moms and for children. And I want to give them a safe space. And I want it to be, like you said, a place where they can come and not feel anything, but just be safe and just meet Jesus and just be loved and be able to come and bring their awful, disgusting, horrible, traumatizing stories and turn them into light.
All right. Well, what do you want? What would you say to the girl who might be listening, who feels like she's done too much, that God can't possibly use her? What would you say to her?
That his most beautiful work comes from ashes. Like the ashes that you literally look at and you're like, there is no possible way anything can come to that. Like incinerated ashes. That's where his most precious work comes from. Because it's our God. Like they say, he wants us at those moments where there is nothing more that we can do but to fall to our knees and to say, it's yours. It's yours, and it's never too far. It's never too far. I mean, take my testimony, and I love being a mom. Like, I love being a mom. I can't wait to have more children. And now I just inspire and look at the fact that, like, I get to bring children into this world completely engulfed in God. I hated being a mom before. And now it's one of my favorite things. And now I can look into the future and be like, I am just set the standard for the rest of the generations. So there's never too much. And when I come out with the rest, when I get that courage, it will show more that it's never too much. There's never too much for God to handle. He wants it all. He wants absolutely all of it. But he can't have it unless you give him the permission. You gotta willingly hand it to him, and that is the hardest part, is to actually be able to say, I did this. This happened to me. Here it is. And have the faith to know that he is not going to come and hate us for it or condemn us for it or turn away from us, but he's going to take it and he's going to lift us up and he's going to put that crown on our head and he's going to be like, now here we go.
Yes. Thank you. That was like perfect. Thank you so much for your time. I love you.
I love you.
I do.
I'm hot right now, so the Holy Spirit is up in here.
Oh gosh. Okay. So where can people find you?
I am on Instagram. I am going to be more accessible. I'm actually walking into a fast this November. Coming out of this fast, I'm walking in purpose. No more fear, no more shame, and no more holding back. So you can find me at Alyssa. Yeah. You can find me on Instagram at lifeasalyssa, life.as.alyssa.
I'll put a link down there.
But coming December, it will be a complete shift from what it is right now. And I'm really, really excited because this will really be a catapult.
Transparency.
Yeah.
What's funny is that this will be released in December, so that's crazy.
Look at that.
Anyway, I am so proud. I'll be checking that out. I'll be liking it. I'll be sharing it. Support you, and thank you again for being on the podcast.
Thank you for bringing me. That's ultimately.
I'll stand in agreement with you. And I'm so proud of you. And I'm so proud of Brayden. He's so cute and handsome. Thank you for being so transparent. I feel like, I don't know if you shared more than you maybe thought you were going to.
So.
But I appreciate it and I honor you. And you're a friend of me.